Hey, everybody, welcome back to Too Many Men. I am an exhausted Alison Lucan. We're recording this the day after some brilliant marketing idea called Frozen Frenzy. We're going to dig into all that delight. But what does make me happy every single week is to spend time with someone who is a genius, hilarious, and stunningly beautiful. Sara Sivian. Sara, how are you today?
You never not make me blush, Allison. I'm great now that I'm in the presence of you two beautiful souls.
And to that point, our bubble of happiness, our secret circle of joy is not complete without another brilliant, timely, witty, and not afraid to say what's on her mind, but it's always the most salient point in the world. Shayna Goldman. Shayna, say hi.
Hi, I want that last line crusted on a pillow, so when everyone's like, "What the fuck are you saying?" I can hold that one up.
Well, I'm gonna just call an audible here, my friends. And usually we start with what, Sara?
Benny Drawbars, Bito News.
But there's more pressing news right now. We'll get to Bito News. We have some things to discuss. But y'all, it is Wednesday. Yesterday was Tuesday. Tuesday, let me underline, bold, asterisk, and highlight that. Tuesday. And the
Taco Tuesday. Sorry, I'm so sorry.
and the NHL decided that, again, it was Tuesday, was a great day to have all 32 teams in the NHL play each other with starts staggered by 15 minutes. Now, I had a game to cover for the team that I work for, so I still have yet to catch up, and I've been trying to catch up since last night and into this morning, literally walking to the train, and while I was getting ready this morning, watching NHL Network and listening to Sirius XM to try and piece together everything that happened. I'm still not caught up. Um, there's a lot of thoughts. Look, it is good to promote the game. It is good to show how exciting hockey can be. But on a Tuesday, we all have thoughts. I think we're just going to go around the circle. We'll go one thought at a time. Shayna, you're first. One thought.
One thought. It is very nice to see that the NHL knows how to stagger a schedule, but I do not think the NHL should be patting themselves on the back for doing it one night of the regular season because this kind of schedule you will not see until the postseason. And yes, there have been some nice nights like Saturday of last week and Wednesday last week, right? It was like a perfect schedule. But you're gonna do this once a year on a fucking Tuesday. Before we even get into what the Tuesday signified and all the other things, a Tuesday you did this. At least they didn't put, if I remember correctly last year, the latest start was 11 o'clock or 11:15, and the last game was like Philly Vegas. So at least there's not an Eastern Conference team playing at 11 o'clock. But on a Tuesday, you do this?
Sara, one thought.
On, on the Tuesday where my Boston Celtics were raising their banner, I am salty and I'm offended. Like, and I understand. I know, listen, I'm not going to get hired by ESPN ever. So I'm allowed to just, I will shit on this, whatever. I know that they were doing this to compete with TNT. And I don't want to shit on anyone's parade, rain on it, maybe even, but I will. I don't. This was transparent to me what it was, and like trying to make it this cute marketing thing. And I know I tweeted about it, and people, oh my god, why are you in hysterics, you stupid little bitch? Like, okay, they didn't say that, but that's how they said it in their voices because they were all men, of course. Too many men in my quote tweets, as always, because they can't respond. So they're just saying, why are you in hysterics? I'm not. Well, maybe I am, and maybe that's okay. Maybe I am really stressed out about having to watch. I want to watch. Sue me. I want to watch every single game. I want to watch NBA. Why can't we do this on a Saturday and start at 10 a.m.? Why wouldn't that be absolutely lovely? I would love that.
Well, and I like, here's my one thought. We'll continue to go around. Like 15 minutes, I'm with Shayna. Saturday was every hour, and it was perfect because you could follow a game, blend into the next game, blend into the next game. This is hockey. This is not football where it's stop start. So you can have 4 or 5 different games on at a time and follow it. Even with, and I didn't get to take it in, I appreciate that ESPN had their pseudo, I guess, red zone attempt. I didn't get to see it, so that's not a judgment. But like, folks, hockey is constant movement. That's what makes it so exciting. It is impossible to follow this many games all at the same time if you have nothing else to do. Like, if you want to grow the game, throwing too much at people is not the answer for me at all. I don't understand it. And then you don't have ESPN used to have a really, in all seriousness, awesome nightly recap show. It is gone. So if you could not sit in front of your TV and had all the licensing to watch all the games, you're SOL, and it's going to take forever to catch up. Shayna, do you have another thought?
I have many thoughts. Where this is about to be the entire episode. I took notes because I have so many thoughts.
Oh,
You know it's serious if I'm fucking taking notes. I'm like I'm complaining the entire night watching it with Rich. And I'm like, I'm sorry if I sound like I'm just being a Debbie Downer, but I'm like, I need to like get this out of my head because he kept going like, this is great as a casual fan. And he's looking at me and I'm like, I'm not having a good time. Which point to go with? Let's go with the Saturday that you mentioned, Sarah. Everyone is so quick to say when I mentioned why is this on a Tuesday night weekend to go, they don't want to compete with college football. And I get that for ESPN, right? ESPN's the rights holder for college football, and that is their big day. Sure. But the schedule is a shitstorm every fucking Saturday. So they compete with college football and they fail. Secondly, look at what you were competing against. The NBA schedule might not have been loaded, but it was the opening night of the season. That's a big deal. People want to watch those games. Also, had the series not ended beautifully sooner than it did, it would have been Yankees Guardians game 7.
Yee.
That's huge. That is huge right there, right? Qualifying game for the World Series would have been, why would you compete against that? So can you do this normally on a Saturday? I don't know. The NHL goes up against college football every week. But if not, just wait. Just wait until regular season NFL football ends on a Sunday or college football and try to own a weekend day and do this where you start early and go all day. You could do this every Saturday after the Super Bowl, right? And this would be fantastic because that's the most important part of the season. You have this go through a lot of February, March, and obviously into April. You're rolling. You have potential. Or do it sooner. Do this as a launch to the NHL season, right? You could have the soft launch day 1 triple header like they did and do this for day 2 or the first Saturday of the season and roll with it and make it such a moment. But instead you choose this timing. So everyone's saying, oh, you can't compete about football. Look at who you just competed against and you still probably lost.
Sarah?
Oh, yeah, I completely agree. And listen, this isn't the end of the world. Like, I'm going to move on, but I do just, and I know it's like, how does this affect the blogger in the room? I'm like, I just want to watch everything so I can discuss it with you guys. And I'm in the civreport.substack.com group chat talking about, all right, guys, what games are we watching? How are we approaching this? Like, it was good to know that it wasn't just reporters who were like, oh my God, but my games, but my stats, but my looking at this with my eyeballs so I know I can properly do my job. It's like, I don't know, it pisses off the reporters sometimes. And please think of us. Please like our sport and respect us big J's. But also, yeah, some people want to watch all the games. Like, I like a good idea. I like trying something, but I just wish there, it's like you're creating a need for something that you didn't need. Like the reason there is red zone is because all of these games are all, there's what, 17 games a year for each team, and they're all happening on one day and maybe
Right.
like Monday, Thursday, whatever. But the whole point is that these games have no choice but to overlap and that they're all significant, right? So you're doing that because there are plays of consequence.
I just, I agree with you, Shayna, on the timing of it too. Like, games matter, every game matters, blah, 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 unless you're poor San Jose, God bless. But like, if why not do this when there's more of a desert in the sports landscape and when games are much more meaning? I don't understand why all the Sarah, in all seriousness, I'm not trying to like get us in trouble, but why was this a shot across the bow at TNT? I don't understand.
Like, why, like, you're not understanding how I came to that conclusion, or because why would they do that?
Well, no, I understand why they do it, but why is it a shot at TNT?
I think, well, maybe I'm doing a conspiracy, but it's like a huge night with the Celtics banner being raised. And it's like I was in Boston and everyone,
Oh,
like
I see.
the whole performance with
I see.
Shabuzi and the whole TNT desk. It was like Barkley
I
was here and
see.
they had this whole like huge TV show that they were doing. And it's
I
like, all
see.
right, perfect. And it's like the first night of NBA. So it's like perfect
Okay.
opportunity.
As a non-NBA follower, I now am in the loop. Apologies for my stupidity. I got it. I got it.
And
Regret,
Wednesday is the night that TNT gets. So it's like,
right.
let's give them one game.
I just would listen. If you're going to do this, then you must give if you because again, I want people to love the game and I want there to be more demand for great hockey. So if you want to do that, if you're going to do this with your schedule, you have to have a recap show. You simply have to have a recap show or some sort of red zone thing consistently because I'm literally just like throwing up my hands right now. I've got goalies like running through my brain of who did what and goal scorers and 18 injuries and it's just wild. Like do this, but if you're going to do it, support mechanisms to continue to tell the story so that fans continue to stay engaged because I would really love to know how many people legitimately feel like they were able to take in all that hockey and wanted that much hockey yesterday. I don't know.
I know I had to watch the highlights like 7 times this
Yeah,
morning. I'm like piling a little bit on. It's not that big of a deal, but it's just a little silly and annoying when I'm trying to I genuinely watch every game.
100%.
Yeah. No, but I think it's worth piling on because it's part of a bigger problem, right? Like, I honestly think, and I know NHL Network does on the fly every night, right? Make it a streamable option. Everything that
Mhm.
gets streamed on ESPN Plus, 99% of the events, right, are not live only feeds. They have a replay.
And
If
again,
you are,
remember to use the Hulu app. It's such a better interface than the ESPN app to watch the games. And
it
rant.
has a slightly bigger delay though, I think,
I
which
don't
annoys
care.
me.
I would much
Um,
rather be able to toggle and
that's fair. Yeah. So I feel like if you archive what they did last night, the coverage of the Frozen Frenzy, right? And like I will get to my thoughts on the actual coverage of it. Like we're not even there yet because I that's how many thoughts I have. Um,
You have at least 32 thoughts.
at least minimum.
I didn't know we could
Um,
have that many.
yeah, who knew? But there's a way to do this. I think every time that you have 10 plus games overlapping, right? And this doesn't have to you start games at 6 and this runs to 1 a.m. You don't have to do that, right? Just in the thick of it, you have that streamable option to have as your companion feed or to play in a bar, right? So everyone can just casually watch hockey. Like there's a way to do it. But the NHL is so set on the idea that fans don't care about games outside of their favorite team. And yes, every person who has one TV is going to say, well, I'm a fan of the Red Wings and I'm only playing the Red Wings game. You're absolutely right. But on an off day or during intermission, you might want to flip channels and you can't. It's all part of the biggest like scheduling issue. And that's how the NHL deploys their schedule every single year. This Frozen Frenzy comes at the cost of 2 nights now. You have 2 nights with one game on the schedule.
Oh,
That's
yes.
I'm
terrible.
stressed.
Not even
I'm
an
like
early
so
game, a
stressed out
late
about
game.
this.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's miserable when today should be your big day, just like last Wednesday was, to have this nice bounce schedule. It could still be a light night with 5 games, but don't have it that it's one game. And a lot of
Yes.
people say, well, you can't do this. You can't have a day like this later in the season because then you can't have all the buildings available because of NBA games. Listen, the NHL manages many Saturdays with 13 or 14 games at once. It just is so unnecessary. If you want to have one day a week where you load it up, go off. But it's every week the schedule is the same. Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. There's barely any games on, and Tuesday,
Mhm.
Thursday, Saturday are overflowing with it. You can't take in that much content, which is why we talk about staggering the start times, which, oh look, they knew how to do. But on a Tuesday night, I don't expect a local market to have to watch an 8 p.m. start, right? Because not every fan's going to want to go to that. They
Mhm.
have to get up in the morning. On a Saturday or Friday night, go off, right? I don't think anyone have an issue on a Friday night if they had to go to an 8 p.m. local time start
The
because that is what
Seattle
you're doing.
start, the Seattle start in Seattle was 5:30 local time.
Why?
5:30.
On a Friday or Saturday, could you make that work a lot better
Yeah.
than a Tuesday?
Oh, 100%. 100 and
So,
they changed it after the schedule was released too. So even though everyone was trying to communicate the time change, like there were still a ton of fans who were like, we did not know this game started at 5:30. Because why would you think a game would start at 5:30 on a Tuesday?
and that's now twice this season that's happened to Seattle. We're not even a full month in. It just makes no sense. If you want to roll with 7 p.m. starts and you really don't think 7:30 works for a lot of teams and public transportation comes in mind and everything like that, right? Then just have fewer games at once and you won't have that issue. You look at next week's schedule, it's 7 games, 8 games, 7 games, 6 games. It's so nicely balanced. No one's going to be complaining.
I,
It's
I'm
not, it's not that difficult.
I don't understand the driver to do this. Like, who was asking for this? In all seriousness.
It's like they feel this is their big marketing tool. Like, look, watch every game in action, but just market your game on a regular basis and you won't need a day like this.
Yep. And I know it's ESPN's push to care about hockey. I do love the passion some of the people who work there have about hockey, but it is like, I wish they could express that every day. I don't know.
So I didn't get to watch any of the coverage, Shayna. You said what was your I like the idea of it. I like, again, if you're going to have this much hockey, having a like red zone or a whip around the league show in support is essential, but I didn't get to see any of it. So you said you had thoughts on the coverage.
Yeah, like you're using Red Zone as your template, and I feel like they could have like taken more notes from Red Zone. And I get it, hockey's difficult because you don't know when a goal is going to happen.
100%.
But on Red Zone all the time, there are freak scoring plays like, a team on defense scores and you don't expect it. And 3 seconds later, you'll see the highlight, which I think is fine instead of necessarily catching it live like, hey, they're in the red zone. Let's flip to them. So I feel like anytime a team was on a power play or an empty net situation, automatically you should have them up. And then you can cut to scoring plays. But also, they really weren't like using the multicam capability that they had until I think it was like 9:30, 10 o'clock. I saw them using it a little bit more, but even still, they were keeping it up for like 2 seconds and then going big screen on one game. And it's like I remember like a power play for the Islanders, I think it was, and then or an empty net situation for the Islanders, and then I think Predators Boston, there was a special team situation. They had it up and they quickly just picked one instead of the other. And it's like the beauty of red zone is when important things are happening, they keep them all up. It also feels like they made it a heavier lift for themselves than they needed to. Like on Red Zone, Scott Hansen will catch you up on the play and then go into it and let those broadcasters cover it. And I get it in hockey, it's different. It's not one national broadcast. You have to choose home or away. Whatever, make your decision and do it. Catch you up quickly and be like, all right, the Predators are heading to a power play because David Pastrnak is in the box for tripping. And now we're going to go live to the Predators coverage of it. That's all you had to do instead of overcomplicating it. Put sound on one game or have sound on none of them while you have multicam up and you like go through it. It felt like they didn't know what to pick and choose at times, except for when they were showing goals.
The structure of hockey doesn't lend itself to this really, right?
Right. And like also like in defense of the people who were on the show, like it's impossible to watch all those. You would have to be like,
yeah.
Like PK, you are watching these two games and only these two games, and this is your assignment. And whoever else was there, like you're watching these. Like, it's impossible to take in all those games because of what hockey is great, but it's great because it's chaotic and it's not predictable, and that's it. It's so frustrating.
They made it too much like a watch along when it's impossible to be to watch along with that many games going on.
Right.
Like use those local broadcasts because not for nothing. That's their moment for the spotlight, which is something we've talked about before. In big moments, you don't get that moment for the spotlight. If the Red Wings are up 1-0, defending an empty net goal
with 10 shots on goal,
insane. I want to hear Ken Daniels calling it, or vice versa. If the Islanders are trying to catch up, I want Brendan Burke's call in that moment. Just flash to them. That way, you don't have to be like chaotically trying to keep up with everything. But instead, they're showing 20 seconds flipping away, and you're like, I didn't get enough out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I know I'm like nitpicking a lot, but it's not because I want to like put people down for their work. I want it to be better. I want the NHL to grow. I want to see the NHL market themselves. It benefits the fans if the NHL gets better. It benefits us. There's more jobs if the NHL is a more popular league. Like, it's not like I'm just trying to shit on everybody that had a part of this because it was an extremely heavy lift and they still made something of it. But like, don't do this once a year. Have ESPN every Saturday, 10 plus games. Do this, or have NHL Network do it because they are very good at it, and let ESPN stream it so you can have it as your second screen companion because that should never be your primary feed.
Anything else we need to say on this, my friends?
Just 98 goals. Oh my God. It's like, of course that happened too. They were some of the craziest games of the year. You could just clock that. Like every over was hit. It was just an insane atmosphere. And it's like, damn, would have loved to see it, witness it myself, but whatever.
Yep.
So, and again, I just want to reiterate what Shayna said is that we're frustrated because we love hockey and we want to see it grow. And it feels like this was an intention that didn't meet the ask. So it could be better. Excuse me, and that's all we want. All right, Sara, now what time is it?
Video news.
It is time for a bit of news, and unfortunately, we have to start with a lot of sad bits of news. It is hockey, injuries happen, but some big injuries with some big leave times. Let's start on the island. Anthony Duclair, who goes to play for Lou, cuts his hair and everything, is out long-term, lower body injury, an exciting, dynamic offensive player. And as we just mentioned, Islanders lost. Again, I'm probably going to say 15 different results today because I think I remember what happened yesterday, but still unclear. What does the loss of Duclair mean for the Islanders, Shayna?
He is not your driver and your game-breaking player, but he's the exact kind of like complementary talent this team needs in their top six. If anything, the Islanders would have had a home run offseason if they got two of Duclair. Like two players of that mold. The fact that they only got one now that they're down him, it's like you're back to square one where you started. And this team really lacks offense in their middle six. Like Brock Nelson's great and Barzal and Horvat, but you need guys around them to elevate them because this team isn't scoring enough, especially like Petrogua took over and the team is so much better defensively and the goaltending is there and they have all of this potential. But even if you can limit to your opponents to one goal, you still need to score them on your own. And now it just got harder. I know they weren't scoring with Duclair to open the season, but I think he would have found his footing and been the complementary winger the top six needs. Now you have to find two potential replacements. So it's a really, really, really tough one for the Islanders who need to take a very long look at themselves and go, we committed to this window. Now we need to maximize it. Let's get the fuck to work because no one's saying rebuild, retool right now. Like, you got to do something. You got to be smart about it. And I don't know if they're going to be.
We will be interested to see because Lou won't tell us till after it's done anyway. So who's to say what will happen in New York? Moving to a team that has the Blues. Ayo. Just
There she
announced.
is.
No one, yeah. Also, Draisaitl is my pun.
I was trying to
No,
do you proud.
No, I know you were.
With
no,
it.
I'm
And
not
people
saying it
thought
to
I came
you.
up with it. I'm like,
I know.
that is not mine. Who among us would ever think I could come up with something like that? That
You could.
screams you.
Yes, but you could because you're brilliant. But a team that is having a little bit more blues, Sara, is St. Louis, who announced this morning as we went to record that Robert Thomas out again. These injury timelines are like, we're not even dealing with like day to day or week to week. Robert Thomas, fractured ankle, 6 weeks out. Impact on the Blues, Sara, a team that wanted to stay relevant this season and not have to go through a proper quote unquote rebuild.
It sucks because this is such a crucial time in their season. I feel just when they form their identity of, okay, are they going to be relevant or not? And they've had a few enticing games. Like Thomas is such a huge part of what they're trying to do. Kyrou has been really good. Justin Falk has been great. He's had a little resurgence, but Binnington's gonna Binnington. And it's just like there you want to avoid a slippery slope of losses right now. They're already had a pretty bad loss last night. And now with Thomas out, the vibes are not good. And if they want to stay relevant in this really competitive division, they have to make a statement with him out.
Our other Blues sadness team is the Columbus Blue Jackets, who have Boone Jenner already and now Gabranson out with shoulder injuries 4 to 6 months. And yet Columbus comes back. And did you guys see the joke that the amulet won't protect you from 5G?
Yeah.
I love that.
The gift that keeps on giving.
I'm like the pictures, people being like, do you see Tavares' shirt? It looks like he has an amulet underneath it, or like you can see like a necklace string going into like a collared shirt. Like people are putting the work in and I respect it. It's incredible.
But and good, and listen, if anyone deserves a little joy, it's the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Columbus fans. But they're now down Jenner for months, Gabranson for months, and Kent Johnson for what is, I think the last quote I saw was not an insignificant amount of time. Yet they do find a way to get that win. And from what I have been able to watch, it looks like some fun hockey is happening there. Shayna, we aren't expecting a lot from Columbus this season. Are you more impressed with what the remaining roster is able to do, or do you foresee this just making it even worse long-term for them with their injury situation?
No, I think it's fun and they're allowed to have some fun and it's exciting. You look at that top line like Marchenko and Chinnikov and Monahan, like they're playing really well together and their numbers are really strong to reflect it. It's obviously unfortunate to see the Kent Johnson injury because I think he's such a sick player and I want to see him just thrive. But they're making games interesting. Right now, I think they're second in the league in goals per game. I'm sorry, goals per 60, behind only the Rangers at 5-on-5. They're shooting almost 15%. Do I expect them to keep it up? No, because the offensive creation is just not there below the surface. But they're finishing their chances and they're making things interesting. And I think that's always a good thing. Even if you end up bottom five in the league with an up and coming team, you want them to play competitive games at some point in the season. So maybe by game 68, it's all for nothing. But if they can get it going a little bit now and have some fun with it, why not? There's building blocks, right? You have to learn how to score goals in this league. It's probably the most important part of the game. As much as we talk about defense and how great it is, scoring goals is how you win. So if you can do that, it's a good step in in the direction they need to go. And I think with young up and coming talent, like who they have that offensive ability, let them thrive and let them cook and deal with the rest later.
I'll have you both weigh in on this next team because this team this morning announced two long-term injuries, and that's the Utah Yeti. Sean Durzi, who's been out, we knew for a while, but we didn't know what exactly was going on. It's announced he had shoulder surgery, also ton of shoulder injuries this season, you guys. 4 to 6 months with that surgery. And John Marino has had back surgery, and he is out 2 to 3 months. This is a team that had a hot start, but recently seems to be getting brought down to earth. Sara, I'll have you go first on the situation that lies ahead for the Yeti of the Utah.
Yeah, I'll be impressed if they can keep it up. They're already flailing a little bit. And you look at some of the underlying numbers, and it really does, not to be negative, Nancy, it's so great for the franchise that they had such a hot start, but it's kind of giving a hot start based on purely vibes and adrenaline. And you see that with like the home schedule, right? They finally lost at home yesterday. My Ottawa Senators spoiled their party. And I just kind of think, I don't know, I love
Vezina
Ingram as
candidate
a
Anton
person.
Forsberg.
Yeah. I love Ingram as a person, but I think his numbers were pretty deceiving and now they're being exposed a little bit. I really hope for him it's a matter of getting more reps in and maybe with these defensemen out, he's going to kind of step up and know, all right, I really have to take this seriously, but I'm not necessarily anticipating that.
Shayna, your read on the current state of the Yeti.
See, I'm okay with Ingram and his start because of last year. I feel like he did a lot with less. That I'm like, my big question is,
Oh,
can you repeat it? Because we know
yeah.
goaltending's volatile, and how many guys like Gustafson and Samsonov, like they had those great breakout years and then they couldn't follow it up. So I'm so curious what he's going to do this year. But I mean, with Marino, they haven't had him so far, so they've managed without him thus far. Obviously, it doesn't help that you're not going to get him back for a while because I think he's prime for a rebound. I think it was such a bad year in New Jersey last year that I felt like we were going to see him get back to the level he was at the year before. Jersey is a tough one though because he was solid and I think slotted more appropriately this year as that second pair guy instead of being over leveraged. I feel like this team has a lot of potential because they were so good last year up until pretty much the relocation was announced or rumored because no one respected them. But I mean, I digress. But like they had that potential. So now you have Sergachev, you're already a step better. You have another year of experience for guys like Gunther and Cooley that I feel like they could still be a good team, but now they're going to have to figure out long term how to be a good team without these like key reinforcements on defense. And if they can keep things afloat, I would say watch out for them in the second half when they get them back.
Yeah.
We don't have enough to talk about how this affects the Leafs. Maybe the amulet is working against too many men, who's to say, but there was a potential injury. And this is one that, I mean, this is just bums me out, right? But Max Pacioretty Patches, who went there on a PTO and finally gets on the roster and finally starts getting into games, leaves yesterday's game with a lower body injury as we record. I haven't seen any updates. I don't know if you have, but Sara, a player who came back from two horrific calf injuries and now is just trying to stay around in the league. What do you make of this early on news and what do we hope for, obviously, in terms of other than full recovery for Patches?
Oh God, it's just brutal. he's such a good player, and then he starts the season off strong, and then something happens, and you just root for him. He's been a journeyman, and it just stinks when this keeps happening again and again. I don't even have much to say about it. I'm just hoping for the best for him mentally because it has to be so
Mm.
tough.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, in the time that we continue to record, maybe 18 more injuries will get reported. Who's to
Yeah.
say? But in non-injury news, we have some information to discuss. And that is that the league has announced that the NHL Players Award show, as we know it, is no more. For those of you who haven't paid attention, and honestly, I barely did because this was often a painful event to watch. But this was a show that was meant to be entertaining, that usually tied in and around the draft, where the major awards of the league were handed out and resulted in awkward speeches and awkward comedy skits around it, and usually some random musical act that Gary thought was hip. But they now have to come up with different creative ideas. And so I will ask each of you your thoughts on getting rid of the show. I personally am fine with it. But do we have thoughts on what they should do in terms of handing out the major league awards at the end of the season? Sara.
I have been to a lot of these shows, but what happens is I just like wear a dress, take a picture, and leave. Like I don't, it's just not real. I think that's how they feel about it too. And then they get xenophobia thrown at them. Like remember oh my God, was it Kucherov? They were like making fun of. I forget who it, yeah, Kucherov. And like, it's some random D-list comedian that you've never heard that like went viral on TikTok once. It's like, nobody knows these people. Like, do your comedy sets somewhere else. But yeah, I don't hate to see this leave. I think it's kind of an unnecessary day at the drafts or wherever they're at, like every year. And I think the players clearly don't want to be there, especially after they're getting roasted by random people. So that's unpleasant. That's over. But I think it's hilarious that one of the suggestions is the league shows up to their houses unannounced and it's like,
Oh my God.
surprise, you won. You're the best guy of the year. It's like, imagine you're just like chilling and Gary Bettman arrives to your house and he's like, you don't have CTE. That's not real. It has nothing to do with concussions. And you're our best player of the year. Like, I just think like you don't want to see that guy randomly show up to your house unannounced.
Shayna, I mean, it does make sense, right? Because again, the draft is decentralized from this year going forward. So to get everyone together now seems a little bit superfluous. But do you have any thoughts on what they could do to make the awards perhaps more rewarding for the winner and just celebrate the whole achievement a bit better?
Yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense to like not have an award show because what are you gonna do? Make everyone travel in that short of a time there and back all over different cities like they've done for the last how many years because they are so bad at planning and
Yeah.
setting schedules. Like it's fine for me because even if I was able to go, I probably wouldn't make it anyway. I'd get deterred on, a million flight issues. Who's to say? So whatever. And this, I don't have to spend one of my nights watching this. I'm good with that. Um, they've tried it before where they've announced pregame during the playoffs,
Right.
which works, I guess. It's
I
not the most
kind of hate
exciting.
it though.
Yeah, I don't love it. I feel like I wonder if there's a way to maybe do something with like former winners of the award.
Mm.
Like they surprise call them and it gets recorded and that's how you find out you won. Like, you bring in
Make
like
it Zoom. NHL awards, but
yeah.
make it Zoom.
No, but like if they like obviously you can't be like, all right, we think Cam Carr is going to win the Norris Trophy this year. Let's get cameras to his house because it's going to give it away. But if someone like Brian Leach calls up Cal McCarr and like you have the cameras on Brian Leach and have it on speaker and he gets like to hear it, like maybe you'd get more organic and exciting reactions from players. But it's like I don't know the way to do this if you want to involve the players and keep it a surprise. I think what they should do, this is my honest opinion, is ask Connor McDavid what he thinks and let him plan this out because he did such a lovely job with the All-Star game this year. I have total faith in him. I love his personality. Bestie Connor, step right up. I
You
think
know,
that you should be an NHL planner as your second career.
that's an amazing idea. Like, I really genuinely think that. I think he has really good ideas, and I want to see this happen.
I
No
want to see the
smiling
meeting
though.
too. Please give me a special now in the room of Connor McDavid sitting there. Like, you know how like party planners, all the papers are out and you have like the bulletin boards and here's your like wish list. I want to see him do everything and be like throwing stuff, yelling at his crew to dig the fuck in.
But if they make a special of it, Shayna, you're not going to watch it. Neither of you have watched Face Off yet.
It's not my fault. It's not my fault. Okay. I didn't
I
expect the
know.
Yankees to be here, and that has overtaken my life. And I didn't expect the Mets to be there. And that, of course, has overtaken the other parts of my life. Now I don't have to deal with them anymore. Thank goodness. So I'm like, I'm almost back on track, but I'm not yet because now we're in a Halloween vibe. Like, there's things happening. I'm going to watch it. It's on my list. Rich apologized to me this morning. He was like, I'm sorry we didn't get to watch it yet. I hope Allison's not mad at you. I'm like, I'm going to blame you. I'm throwing you under the bus.
I just wish they put it in the off season when I don't want to get too burnt out by
Yeah,
hockey.
like 2 weeks early before the season started, like a little more distance to get you hyped for the season could have been the move.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been great.
Yeah, that's
NHL
fair.
marketing, baby.
Because what was the one, was it 2 years ago, the Leafs one that was on Amazon? Like I never watched it because it
Oh
was
yeah.
released at the start of the season and then the season started and I was past it. So that's fair.
Yeah.
All right.
Narrated by BoJack Horseman.
All right. There was one other league announcement, and this came yesterday, and that is that the NHL/Fanatics released a line with Lululemon. And not lost on some of us is that Matty Beniers low-key hard launched his girlfriend because everyone else was with their significant others. And I was like, oh, everyone's posing with models. Wait a minute. Those are all wives with children, and some of them are with child. I'm like, oh, fascinating. So good for him. Congratulations, Maddie Beniers.
Yeah.
Um, but I like, listen, I'm a sucker for a Lululemon cross brand, but I feel like the pieces they picked weren't super exciting. And also, if you read the press release, the stuff is only available at certain locations that are not necessarily readily accessible. Let's start with the style first. Sara, you are our style guru. Do you like the pieces and the design that they went with for this line?
Like Shayna has already done this and better. That's my thoughts on it. I think it's a little, I like the minimalist. I think it's minimalist is in right now with kind of vintage stuff. Like I'm wearing an actual vintage San Antonio Spurs NBA All-Star game thing from 1996. I like this crew neck, but I wish there was like a little more color in some of them. I like the fonts. Like it's not half bad, but they want to make it wearable streetwear, you know what I mean? But at the same time, it's going to be hella expensive for something that's not really interesting.
Shayna, you, as Sara pointed out, are our resident designer. Your thoughts on the style choices for this line?
I mean, listen, some of the ones that are like a plain patch on it, it's like you could get, even if you don't want second hand, get a patch and get that and iron it on and be done for fucking $20. But
Seriously.
it's like, okay, so I like the concept of having the players with their wives and girlfriends. I thought that was nice. But and I liked there was one the Maple Leafs one that they showed it. It's like the zip up jacket with the patch on the arm, very minimalist, but I can see realistically people wanting to wear that because you're going for a slightly sporty look and you have representation for your team. Even the Lululemon like branded ones with the patch, I can see people who want that more minimalist approach being very excited about it. It's simple without being down your throat. But then some of the other ones, like the one with Dylan Larkin and his wife, that crew neck sweatshirt, I'm like, I've seen that 100 times, and now it's going to be 100 times the price that I'm not as excited. I wish that there was. I'm not a big Lululemon person, so I apologize for like not knowing their styles perfectly, but kind of like their signature look a little bit more involved into this, I think would
Mm-hmm.
have been more interesting
I
because to
agree.
me, I'm seeing that Red Wing sweatshirt. I don't know it's Lululemon. I'm thinking it's Fanatics or Mitchell and Ness or something. I don't know. I feel like maybe if the gear for the men's in this is like more fine than the women's, in my opinion. Like the pants and stuff look nice and cozy and that's cool, but like if there was a better baseline for NHL fashion for women right now, maybe I would be a little less critical of it and be like, oh, this is just your simple approach to pair with that. But it's not like we have that exciting of gear to wear in the first place that I look at that and I'm like, this is the best you came up with. Like, cool to the sweatpants, cool to the zip jacket. But like I'm left wanting more
Yeah.
and I'm left disappointed but not surprised.
Yeah. And I think again, I don't know if you guys look too closely at it. I did because I am the sucker for Lulu. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna get this. And it's not gonna be in the Kraken team stores. It's at two specific stores at two malls. And we don't have a car. So we're not gonna be getting all the way out into these suburbs way far away to go to these stores. And it's at Fanatics stores. So like you can't even like say, hey, could you bring it to this other team store that's closer to me? So I wonder if, if the lines don't do well, it's not necessarily because just the design isn't exciting. It might also be because of access. I don't know. I don't know if you guys have looked at that at all, but do you have any thoughts if you did? No
It just
access.
feels like, yeah, they're trying to make it, sorry. No, no, no thoughts, no brain cells. Um, I feel like they're trying to make it an exclusive Fanatics thing, and that might bite them in the butt a little bit if it's like, okay, you have to come to the Fanatics store and buy more things at Fanatics. That's what they're trying to do, maybe, but I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe a little rebrand for the image of the Fanatics brand, but it does make it harder to get, and I'm interested to see what the sales will look like.
Yep. I feel like I wonder. I wouldn't expect in like a Lululemon store you see this, you walk in and see it, but I also kind of would like that because I feel like they're getting more deeper into like the professional sports sphere recently. Like
Mm.
they now
Yeah.
have they do tennis gear for Leila Fernandez. She's one of the I think a couple players now, but I think she was their first like big athlete, and they make really nice gear for all of the opens that with like tennis fashion on the rise, you're seeing people who want to wear those outfits and I think would go to a Lululemon store looking for it. For this, like I feel like say you're shopping and you go, oh, I want to go into Lululemon. And you happen to be a Boston Bruins fan. You see that Lululemon branded sweatshirt with the patch. Like you might be interested and be like, oh, let me do that. And that's a way to like pump up the marketing for the NHL a little bit in a different way. I don't know. It's like there's ways if you're gonna have this crossover, really lean into it. And I get it, maybe it's not that easy to produce and have everything distributed, but then wait to launch it till you can do that. I don't know. I don't know. Your professional organizations like act like it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all of our news. We'd also like to give a shout out to the Vancouver Canucks who managed to score a game with seven players, we think, on the ice. That is too many men indeed. Way to represent on a crazy Frozen Frenzy day and draw the attention to where it really should be. Let's wrap up with just a quick few bullet points in our hockey talk section. Folks, it's a miracle. It was a big day, and not because 306 games happened, but the Nashville Predators have finally won a hockey game, winning 4-0 over the Boston Bruins, who did have Jeremy Swayman in net. I had to double check that when I just saw this score at the end of the night. But Sarah, are you surprised that the Bruins were shut out? And what does it say about how the Preds have been playing? Maybe they weren't getting the results and they were playing well, or did they finally start to put pieces together?
Okay, so first of all, the Bruins. Yep, that's a little alarming with Swayman. God, the pressure is a lot, but you got to rise up to it in this situation. And I mean, you have to look at the other end of the ice too. The production the Bruins have been getting has been like strictly from the fourth line. And Montgomery has been really yelling at Brad Marchand. Like he has been making a lot of silly mistakes. I mean, Pasternak's showing up in overtime, but it's like you got to show up in the first period. Like that's been a problem with him for a while. I don't know. I get agitated with Bruins fans. It's like we have really negative radio people around here. So then they react way too positive. They're like, guys, it's fun. It's not fine. This is like completely not fine. It's the opposite of the I don't want to see the dog in the flame house drinking coffee. This is not fine. The Bruins are fucked. And it's okay to admit that. It doesn't mean like you're a negative Nancy. You're just being realistic. I was grinding my gears yesterday. That's not good. But I will say the Predators, their problems early on, it was a lot of defensive breakdowns. A lot. And I guess the pros to that is that's early on in the season, and this is such a new team, such new defense that it's like they're learning a new system and they have to figure it out how to mesh well together. There's a lot of like big personality, big players. Brady Shea is somebody that takes a second to get into a system. So cleaning that up a little bit, getting Saros's reps in, combined with the Bruins like utter lack of offensive production where they need it, it's like writing's on the wall for something to happen there.
The Preds get the win, Shayna, but they are still 10 points away from both the conference and division leader where they play. Just 2 standings points through 6 games. We talk about how getting down early in the season can be sometimes an impossible obstacle to overcome, minus last year's Edmonton Oilers. We rarely see stuff like that happen. How worried are you about the Predators long term, even if this is the moment that they finally put it together? And maybe it isn't.
Yeah, it feels like if they're going to be vying for the wild card, these points are gonna like come into the equation. And like, yes, I know they went on that huge run last year and it was sick, but you can't count on doing that every year. So it's a little bit concerning because I honestly look at this game and like on the surface, you're like 4-0. Great. But I'm also like, the Bruins have some of the worst underlying numbers in the league. You
Yeah.
getting past them when you've had some of the worst underlying numbers in the league.
Mm.
Is it just that you found a shittier opponent and were able to capitalize on your chances? Like, I literally don't know because you compare that to the game that they had Saturday and you're watching that and you're like, holy shit, this looks bad. And you're going, okay, yes, there's a lot of moving parts and you probably will turn things around, but can you turn things around enough to not just make up for ground that you lost, but now jump up into the playoff picture? Like maybe it works for them that Utah has these injuries because that's a team that it feels like they could really contend for that wild card spot. But it's not ideal. So they really need to pick up the pace and hope that this is the start of good things to come and that once they go up against a better opponent, it's not going to be that they crumble again.
Every team in the league finally has at least 1 standings point. So congratulations, Nashville Predators. We'll see what you can do from here. The one other topic we wanted to talk about from a hockey perspective is the low-key drama happening in net for the Pittsburgh Penguins. They aren't necessarily expected to be the capital P Penguins that we were used to seeing a few years ago, but a 3 goalie rotation is starting to emerge, and the player who is odd man out of late is Tristan Jarry. So this is concerning if you're Pittsburgh. We've already talked about how defensively, this is another team that seems completely out of sync. When you look at what's happening in the Penguins net, it's certainly not their only problem, but how big of a problem is it for them, Sara?
Yeah, if you have 3 goalies, you have none. Am I right, fellas? I think, oh God, I mean, I watched Nedeljkovic really closely in Carolina, and it's somebody that you watch him for one game, and it's like the best performance of you've ever seen of a goaltender. But then you watch him again, and it's like it slips away from him. He needs to find that consistency, and that's why maybe sometimes he's better in a backup role. But Jari is jarring, if you will. It's very scary to watch. I have to close my eyes. I think he has a lifeless goalie
Mm.
game, and he's been kind of, I don't know, he's been tossed around for a few years, and I think maybe just the ship has sailed. You know what I mean? And I mean, it's obvious defensive lapses from like old guys who are offensive producers. It's like you can't have that and like a 3 goalie rotation. It's just like you see the collapses. That's where I really get the feeling that this is ugly in net. Like it's just every game there's a collapse.
Geez, Letang and Carlson catching strays out here from Sara.
Sorry.
Shayna, what say you about the goaltenders for Pittsburgh right now?
It's so interesting to me that they gave him 3 games and they're like, that is enough for us. And like you compare that to Georgiev in Colorado, who is getting these like first 3 starts, and you're going, you could play someone else. You could give him a rest. It was like enough for them. And one of the games was not bad. His game in the middle, I'm trying to remember who they played because it was Buffalo, New York. He was terrible against Montreal that he was good against, if I remember correctly. And like Malkin popped off that game, but it still wasn't enough. And like, I don't look at Jari and go like, you're a bad goalie. I think you're an average, maybe slightly below average guy, but he's just unreliable to
Mm.
me in every which way because his playoff pedigree is not there. And the other part is you don't know if you'll have him for the playoffs. Like he has a lot of injury issues down the stretch. And, when he plays a long season and when he goes into the postseason, that he just is unreliable. So if you want to get that problem solved sooner than later, go off. And it's easy to look at the contract and be like, well, they should have known that. But like, at the time they signed him, I also looked at it and like, what else were they to do? We don't see enough goalie movement in the NHL, and it's really tough to do a goalie trade mid-season because it's such an adjustment. But this is one of those situations where I go, maybe they should be kicking the tires to see who else is available. And I'm really curious if this year we actually get like a big goalie trade or two in the early goings of the season because it feels like there are teams that could use the help. But yeah, they don't need like an Ottinger or a Shesterkin or a Vasilevsky in net. They just need a reliable starter,
Yeah.
a good 1A. And he most certainly has not been that. So I kind of like this approach because it's you look at it and they go, are they just going to see what they have in the other two? Is this a way to teach Jari a lesson and go, okay, get your shit together? Or are they going to start pursuing a trade? Like, I don't know, but it's an intriguing storyline at least.
We will be watching it for sure, especially with all of the big contracts that are being thrown around for goaltenders right now. Something will break down here soon, but it is time to end this episode with our very favorite game, and that is Fuck, Marry, Kill. Sara, we're going to bring it back full circle to the topic that was so important we had to adjust our schedule to get to it. Are you ready for your options for the game?
Yes.
Here we go. Fuck, Marry, Kill, Frozen Frenzy, one game on a day when it's your very favorite team, or the chaos that is every Saturday on the schedule. Go.
I'm marrying the chaos that is every Saturday on the schedule because I think they're staggered out enough. And I do think it's something to look forward to, right? I like being able to some degree to flip from game to game if one's a snooze fest and if one isn't, and like you still have your wits about you. I am going to kill the Frozen Frenzy. I just think it's like that's too much. That's officially too much. And they're trying to do something that they don't have to do. Saturday's right there. And I'm going to fuck when it's one game and it's your team because I love that. But then you're like, wait, what next? What do I do now? Or like, if it's a loss, you can't really distract yourself.
Shayna, your turn.
I'm gonna kill the one game. First of all, I don't like everyone.
Ooh.
No, not for me. Listen, the Giants play Sunday Night Football this week, and you would think, as a reasonable Giant fan, I would be very excited about it because look, I can just focus on my team. No, I don't want that. I like having the ability to relegate the Giants to the bottom screen and to focus on other things because I don't want to watch that game at all. So, it bugs me. And also, when there's one game on the schedule, I know it's coming the next day, and it's going to give me anxiety. Like
That's
I
valid.
knew Monday, okay, relax as much as you can. And I legitimately am tense all day knowing what awaits me. Um, so I have to kill that. I will fuck a Frozen Frenzy because I do think that there's potential there. I legitimately like the idea of a red zone channel as something to go along with potentially your favorite team, right? Because it's a great way to get acclimated to other teams or catch superstars in action, or maybe you catch some bits of one team and you're like, "Oh, sick, I love the Dallas Stars. Now I want to start watching them a little bit more." I think that there's so much potential there if they could execute it better. Love the idea. Hate the execution. Can't stress that enough. And then I will marry every Saturday on the schedule. I have accepted for years as someone who works in hockey that I don't have a life on a Saturday night. And I'm okay with it. You know what? It's loaded. If you're going to pick a day to load up on the schedule, let it be Saturday because you can do games all day. It doesn't compete with football. I don't care about college football, so I don't give a shit about that. Do I think that sometimes a 7 o'clock hour, they throw up 8 games at you at once and then there'll only be one 10 o'clock and you're like, wow, this actually sucks. Hopefully you had good games during the day. I like I like that the NHL can try to own one day. I just don't think they've done a good enough job at it. But I feel like I look at that and I'm like, I can fix you. So I'll commit to that because I think that there's easier fixes that could actually happen versus the Frozen Frenzy. I think like those fixes will never happen and they're just going to pat themselves on the back for the one off.
All right. It's the rare instance where we all have different answers because I am going to marry the one game because I so rarely get to like just sit and just watch the team I want to watch and like focus on it and like take it all in and then dig into everything after and not be feeling distracted about it. Now you've got to catch up and do all these other things. So I like the solitude and the focus of it. I'm going to I will also marry the chaos that is Saturday because if it's a 1 hour by 1 hour start, that's good. But it's harder for me just because of my job, because like for you guys on the East Coast, like you get to kind of like your day rolls into ending with hockey, whereas like I'm prepping for work, but also trying to take in hockey that's happening because it's starting beforehand. and then we're usually the last game, so I kind of miss the end of everything, which kind of sucks. But I like the 1 hour starts in principle. I think it's a good job. And I'm going to kill the Frozen thing because I just think 15 minutes is ridiculous. And I think if you want to sell the game and grow the fan base, there are far better ways to execute it. And I would love to see them do it better. All right. There we have it, friends. We are still alive after a 16 game slate. We did it, Joe. That's it for us. If you want to talk with us more, if you want to follow us, if you want to take in all our hot takes and puns, always be sure to follow us on social. We are at 2_much_man on the Instagram and on the Twitter. You can also sport Too Many Men merch, notebooks like the burn book that Shayna has behind her. If you're watching us on YouTube, we thank you for that. We are on YouTube, by the way. I forget the URL because I'm exhausted, but we'll post it somewhere. Check it out. You can buy our merch at toomanymenmerch.com. We have all kinds of fun things. Hoodie and sweatshirt weather is here. So go rep your favorite podcast and get some sweatshirts or hats. There's a nice embroidered toque. I really like it. And until we meet again, we ask you, please, to do something, no matter how big or small, to make sure that hockey truly is for everyone. We will talk to you soon.
Love you.
Bye.